I'm Matt Smith. Right now on Upfront, the Trump-Pence split comes to Wisconsin. This weekend, the fight to take on Governor Tony Evers, the test of Trump's influence. Former Governor Scott Walker is here. Then the U.S. Senate race, clearing the field in dramatic fashion. The dropouts, the endorsements, and now the general ahead. Courting Wisconsin's black vote, the push to get voters to the polls.
Voting is pure energy. And guess what? That turns into pure power.
We're one-on-one with Souls to the Polls leader Greg Lewis. And 10 years, the mass shooting at the Sikh temple in Oak Creek. Now the police lieutenant credited with saving lives. His reflections and new thoughts on mass shootings in America.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Matt Smith. 9 days to go, a sprint to the primary, and our town hall with the Republican candidates for governor just 1 day away. The Trump-Pence split now front and center in Wisconsin's Republican race for governor. The former president set to rally Friday with Tim Michels, the former vice president endorsing Rebecca Kleefisch, along with Senator Ted Cruz from Texas. Former Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker also endorsing his former Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch. He is now president of Young America's Foundation and joins us now from Washington. Governor, welcome back to the show. Good to see you like always.
Good to be with you.
Former Vice President Mike Pence spoke at your National Student Conference this past week, just a few days ago. I know you two are close. Did you facilitate this endorsement for Rebecca Kleefisch, and how did this all go down behind the scenes?
Yeah, Mike Pence, Ted Cruz, Nikki Haley, Kim Reynolds, all people I know well, and they all know through me just what a great Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Kleefisch is and how much even better she'd be as governor of the great state of Wisconsin.
How did this endorsement come about with the former Vice President Mike Pence?
I was just talking about her experience, in his case, having been vice president, understanding how what that role is and how important it was, but more importantly, understanding as a governor, former governor, what it takes to be an effective governor, someone who's can hit the ground running from day one, someone who's been bold and tested, and who's got an aggressive agenda and a plan of action to get things done for parents, for the economy, for keeping our streets safe. That's something he saw in Rebecca Kleefisch.
Should we expect Mike Pence in the state of Wisconsin before the primary campaigning for her?
Yeah, I think you'll see a number of the names I mentioned. Mike Pence, Ted Cruz, Nikki Haley, probably even Kim Reynolds, who's been here before. All of them, because they've seen, if we talk about wanting strong conservative women to step up, this is a prime example. Kim Reynolds, the governor of Iowa, was lieutenant governor for 2 terms before she became governor in that state, and has done a fabulous job. In fact, earlier this year, she gave the response to Joe Biden in the State of the Union address and talked about the amazing things they're doing in Iowa. And that's the same sort of leader Rebecca Kleefisch is going to be.
Former President Trump is set to rally with Tim Michels in Waukesha County on Friday. If Michels wins this, is it because of Trump?
Well, Tim Michels has every right to run. He's spent a lot of money on this race, about $1 million a week. I think the connection with Donald Trump is a combination. His company was going to build part of the wall, the Keystone Pipeline, as well as a major donor. But in the end, I expect a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020 to also turn around and vote for Rebecca Kleefisch, because she's the one who's tested it. Even before Donald Trump was in office, we were doing big, bold conservative reforms effectively, common sense conservative reforms in Wisconsin. And Rebecca Kleefisch was with us every step of the way.
So help break this down for me. On one side, you have Donald Trump and Tim Michels and Tommy Thompson. On the other side, you have Mike Pence, you have Scott Walker, Robin Vos, Rebecca Kleefisch. Is this primary going to determine whose Republican Party this is in Wisconsin?
No, I think on the issues, we're all talking about the same sorts of things. It's just the contrast out there. Again, I like Tim Michels. He's got every reason to be in the race. But in the end, on issues like the economy, pushing back against Joe Biden and Tony Evers, those are things that conservatives and Republicans are fairly united on. It's just a matter of tone and personality.
Well, what's the Trump influence in Wisconsin at this point, do you think, among conservatives?
Well, I think, Donald Trump's earned the right to have an impact not only in Wisconsin but across the country. He did an effective job as president. Although be mindful that a big ally and partner in his getting the job done was not only Mike Pence as vice president, but people like Ted Cruz and others in the Senate. And remember, in the primary in 2016, Ted Cruz actually carried the state of Wisconsin. So I would imagine his endorsement of Rebecca Kleefisch will have as compelling an impact as that of other endorsements for Tim Michels.
We first reported here that former President Trump called Speaker Voss earlier this month, pressuring him to decertify the 2020 results. What do you make of that?
Well, the interesting thing is I'm a little surprised because the debate a week ago, both Tim Michels and Rebecca Kleefisch said they weren't going to go back and decertify the 2020 election. So the candidate he's endorsed is running contrary to the message he's saying to legislative leaders. In the end, in Wisconsin, we need to learn. There were definitely problems in the 2020 election, as there have been in the past. That's why years ago I signed photo ID to vote law, and Rebecca Kleefisch was a great advocate of that. But we need to learn from other things. The stuff that Zuckerberg's foundation did and other things need to be corrected going forward. We need to make sure that the mistakes that took place in 2020 don't happen again in 2022. But we need to be looking ahead to this election, not just focused on the last election.
A lot of big developments upcoming in the coming days on several fronts. Former Governor Scott Walker, now president of Young America's Foundation. Good to see you. Thank you.
Good news, Matt.
Now to that seismic shift in the Democratic race for U.S. Senate. In just a matter of days, Tom Nelson, Alex Lasry, Sarah Godlewski all dropping out, all endorsing and giving the victory to frontrunner Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. Lasry, who was polling second, telling us he saw no path to victory. So what was the moment? Who did you talk to that kind of finally convinced you and you convinced in your head that this was the time?
I think over the last few weeks, we had just kind of seen the data that had shown that Mandela was really starting to pull away and that he was going to be the nominee. And, after talking with Tammy, talking with my family, and with my campaign team, I think it was clear that if we want to make sure that we can win in November, we have to start right now.
Joe Zepecki is a veteran Democratic strategist. He joins us now. Hey, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
We talked with him on Wednesday. Friday, Sarah Godlewski drops out, 3 within the week. What did we see happen this past week with the Senate race?
Well, if you want to retire Ron Johnson, you saw a dream scenario play out. This is going to allow Mandela Barnes to enter the general election with a full head of steam. After a year where a really great crop of young, dynamic candidates were organizing Democrats, getting people enthused, this is shaking out very well in terms of the fall campaign for Democrats.
For Democrats, big picture, what does 2 weeks do when you already have in-person early voting underway and a primary just days away?
The biggest thing it allows you to do is hit the ground running the morning after the primary. Every 2 years, we have this worry when you're running against an incumbent. After the primary, can you reload and pivot on a dime, hire more staff, get back up on TV, be communicating with voters? This way, that transition can start to happen, and the nominee, Lieutenant Governor Barnes, will be able to hit the ground running on August 10th.
Alex Lasry talked about how he talked with Senator Tammy Baldwin, he talked with the governor, he talked with his family and his campaign, of course. Nationally, how big is this race, and was there a lot of national influence on what we saw this past week?
This is either the or the second highest profile race in the country. Senator Johnson is the most vulnerable Senate incumbent anywhere in America. The senator has a lot to answer for. Democrats coming together now will allow us to take the fight to Senator Johnson and make sure people understand the choice in November.
All right, bring me behind the scenes this past week. You've worked on numerous high-profile campaigns and how this all went down. Dan Bice, Bill Glauber, and the Journal Sentinel kind of detailed, this past week, the internal polling, the conversations. At what point at a campaign do you decide this is the moment, and what told them that this was the moment when we see three clear the field in a week?
Yeah, when every poll comes back telling you the same thing, which is that there's not a path to victory in the primary for anybody but the front runner, then you have options. I thought that reporting from the Journal Sentinel did a really nice job laying out what those options were for candidates like Lasry. I have every reason to believe that the Godlewski campaign also went back in the field and polled this week. They made a calculation. Listen, it wasn't going to happen in terms of winning the primary, so they could stay in and run through the tape, or they could throw their support behind the nominee and get ready for the fall fight. That's what appears to have happened here. There's precedent for this. It's kind of reminding me of the 2020 presidential primary where Democrats kind of dropped out en masse and raced to endorse Joe Biden because they knew what a threat Donald Trump was. I think people on the Democratic side are really ready to fire Ron Johnson. And so you're seeing the same dynamic play out.
What are we going to see nationally from Democrats in terms of resources and funds coming into this race?
Hide under your couch cushions, Wisconsin voters. If you think you've seen a lot of political ads to date, buckle up, because all of the resources are going to be there for both candidates, Republican and Democrat, in both races. Both the Senate race and the governor's race are among the most competitive in the country. there's going to be a lot of ads on TV.
All right, we'll see you again soon. Democratic strategist Joe Zepecki. Joe, good to see you. Thank you. Coming up, 10 years, the mass shooting at an Oak Creek temple. Police lieutenant shot and credited with saving countless lives.
If you hear the sounds of shots, then you have to go stop the sounds of shots.
His new thoughts on mass shootings in America next.